What's going on, everyone? Good evening, good evening, good evening. Let me know if you're here and you're in the chat, if my audio sounds okay. I just want to make sure that it sounds well. But you know, this thing with this technology, sometimes there have been times I've been talking, and guess what happened? No audio. So for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Uche Njoku, the Sneaker Principal, and welcome to the Sneaker Principal podcast. This evening, I'm changing everything up. As you saw from the post that I did about the podcast. From now on, it's going to be a live call-in show. Yes, I'm taking that leap to letting people actually call in and talk to me. I have a phone connected to my system right here, right now. And not only that, I'm going to share with you a link if you want to jump on this platform or video. You could do that as well. One of the things I want to make sure that's very, very clear, we're going to keep this very, very clean, and because this is about education, so I'm going to have people, families, and potentially students and teachers and administrators in this space. So it's very important to me that this is a space that we keep sacred, in the sense that we are projecting the highest level of professionalism, but also speaking our truth. That's something that's very, very important to me. So if this is your first time here, please like, share, subscribe. I'm going to keep asking you to do this throughout this evening, because this is how you get the algorithm on all the social media platforms to push this content out. This is important work that we are engaged in. I'm not going to say me, but we are engaged in, because at the end of the day, education is the key to our survival as people, as a nation, and as humanity. But the question is, what are we teaching, and how are we teaching it? That's the question I have in my mind. For those of you who don't know who I am, I know some people are going to be like, wait a minute, you're not a principal anymore. Why do you still have that promo? That's the promo I had for the podcast. As of August 31st of this year, I resigned as a public school principal. I still work in education, just in the private sector. But I think I'm forever going to be a principal. That's something that's always going to be in my blood. But even more so, not even a principal, I'm forever going to be an educator. So I am looking for someone out there who's willing to help me out with creating a new intro to this podcast. So without further ado, let's get into tonight's conversation. First off, if you're interested in calling in, the number is 914-222-0619. If you call, I can pull you into a conversation, and I want to talk to you. You know, if you're too shy to talk and you just want to put something in the chat, I will be reading the comments, and I'll do my best to get to those comments as soon as I can. And not only that, I'll be sharing in a moment a link if you want to jump on the video call with me face to face, and so we can have a conversation. We can do that as well. One of the things that I want to make sure that's very, very clear. I do understand when we talk about education, whether you're a teacher, you're a para, you're a bus driver, you're an assistant principal, you're a principal, you're a superintendent, often we have our conversations behind closed doors. You know what I'm talking about? Behind closed doors. That means we shut our classroom doors and we say, man, I'm not happy what's happening here. Or here are all these problems happening. We talk to our colleagues in whispers, but we don't really speak up out loud because of fear, and that fear could be for many reasons. And often the fear is, I do not want to lose my job, so I will accept and I will talk in the shadows, but I'm not going to say anything publicly. So with that being said, I understand some people might want to say something, but they do not want to share their identity. They want to remain anonymous. That is perfectly fine. So if you do call in, I will never ask you who you are. If you choose to share who you are, that's great. But of course, I just want to make sure, if you're going to share anything about your school system, your city, your state, wherever it is, that I don't want you getting in trouble, because at the end of the day, it does us no good to lose good educators in our classrooms. I was told a long time ago that my responsibility as an educator was to be a subversive. To go in there and within the system, do what needed to be done to make sure our kids were getting what they needed to be successful. And 17 years is what I did, so I understand. And the other thing too is, at this point in time in my career, I'm not in the system anymore, so I feel like I have a platform here that I can present for people to engage in conversation, and to through me share ideas and thoughts, and hopefully the right people are listening and will take into account what's being said to make change in the system. So all right. So without further ado, again, do me a huge favor. Subscribe, like, share, follow, whatever platform you are. And one more thing I'm going to ask, especially share. If you, it takes you nothing to just share this on, whether you're on LinkedIn, on your account, if you're on Twitter, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, and where else, or Twitch, just share it. Follow, because again, the algorithm likes that level of interaction. Okay, so tonight, I'm going to share something with you real quick, and this is going to be the basis of our conversation this evening. Let me see if I can get this going, and I'm going to do. Let me see if this will let me. Bear with me here, technology, and bam. All right, so I do something I think a lot of us do, those of us who are always online, right? I'm always searching for information about education, most current news. But if you notice on evening news, they don't really talk about education unless it's like the flavor of the day, or like there's something going on. Like we've been hearing a lot about student loan repayment because it's like the thing that's a big deal right now. And there's, people on both sides of the aisle who are like, oh my God, people, you're robbing the country by not paying back your loans and all that other stuff, right? But my thing is, I wish there was dedicated time on the news every evening to say, tonight in education in your city. Wouldn't that be dope? No? But wouldn't that be dope? Just in the news every evening. Tonight in education, this is what's happening in your village, in your town, in your county, but it's not there. So we got to kind of search for it. Those of us who are in education, we know there's spaces you can go to find those kind of information, but they're not readily available. But I'm always searching for stuff. So what I like to do is I like to go in YouTube or on Apple News and just type in education, And I typed in education, something popped up in Apple News that caught my attention. But I had spoken about this in one of my videos, like during the pandemic, and when I went back to read that article, watch the video again, it was gone because it had just kind of like, been taken over by something else. So I went on YouTube and did a search, and I found this video, which I won't be able to play because again, it's copyrighted. If I play this is going to probably demonetize my channel and shut me down. We don't want that. So it's this top news story right here. It says here, Black homeschooling families take education into their own hands, and it's an ABC News report. And then just under education news, Black homeschooling, because that's how I found the video again. There's another video below that. It says why a growing number of Black parents are homeschooling. Then the one after that is Black families turning to homeschooling after pandemic. Then the one after that, pandemic sees Black homeschooling boom. And this is interesting because there's this stereotype that we don't care about education. And when I say we don't care about education, people of color, and specifically Black folk, that we don't value education, not as much as other people. But there's clearly this thing happening where Black families are pulling their kids out of schools. And I have some ideas and thoughts about this, but I'm just curious. Not necessarily what's going on, but I know what's going on. The pandemic exacerbated an issue. And the issue was you had kids at home with parents who were just like, okay, how do I support my child's learning? But then parents who also realized, wait a minute, I'm firsthand seeing the work that kids are being asked to do, but they're sitting in my house, we're sequestered to our homes, and I can see the work and it's concerning me. So parents are like, you know what? First of all, the level is not where it needs to be. And not only that, the content is not cool at all. Then plus everything that happened with CRT and critical race theory and states who are banning books and all kinds of craziness across the country, and especially in those states where they're saying, listen, we're going to literally censor what's being taught in schools. We're going to, parents are like, yo, hold up, I'm putting my kids out. But it's even going beyond that. And my question this evening is this. Beyond my question is what's really going on here? What is this saying about what we're doing in our schools when in our urban centers, parents are pulling their kids out and saying, I'd rather homeschool them myself. You know, is this saying that schools are not doing their jobs? That teachers, and I want to say us because I'm no longer in a school building, that we never really did our jobs. And what was the job? And why are we in a position now where, parents are saying, you know what, bump that, especially black parents, bump that. I'm going to take my kid out and do my own thing. Please call in 914-222-0619. I'm still working on memorizing that number. You call in here, I can pick up, we can talk. And if you are interested in jumping on video-wise with me, I created a tiny URL, and it's tinyurl.com/TSP, Sneaker Principal -video-guest. If you go to that link, and you will be able, you'll be pushed into my green room, and then I can pull you up, and we can jump on video and talk. And that's if you're willing to show your face on video. But if not, you can call in as well. And please use the chat box and share some thoughts. What's going on here? Is this going to get worse? And it's funny because I'm not even sure if I'm using the right language by saying, is it going to get worse? Because a parent saying, I'm going to take my child's education into my own hands, is that a bad thing? Is that a bad thing? That's the thing that I'm stuck on. What is the negative about pulling a child out of the school and saying, I'm going to do it myself? In the video that I watched, there was something that was said was interesting. It was said that the parents who are able to do that are privileged, because they have the resources and the income to be able to do that, which means one parent is actually at home handling the education of that child. Because if the child's not going to school, the child is at home. If the child is being homeschooled, that means the child is literally being homeschooled. There's allowances for other resources to be pulled into homeschooling, but the expectation is that primarily the homeschooling is being done in the home by the parent. So it was said that these parents are privileged. And I thought to myself, that's something I didn't even think about, because again, to be able to homeschool your child, you have to have the wherewithal or the access to funds that allows you to be able to maintain your home. Whether it's one of the spouses or one of the family members is making enough money to cover everything, or maybe between both of you, maybe you have a business or whatever the case is that allows for time for homeschooling to occur. So that's something that's interesting, because again, then it says that I wonder if more people, black folk, had the economic resource, would they opt to homeschool? So please, if drop it, let me know what you think in the chat, or you can call me directly, or you could hit me up on the URL here, and I'll pull you up on the call directly, face to face. I'm gonna put that number up again, and that number is 914-222-0619. And it's interesting because now there's a whole question now of the economic divide, because homeschooling is, I don't know. Because I know if I wanted to homeschool my children, I could afford that. And not all families can do that. So that's something to really think about, But again, I did do a video during the pandemic where I was sharing about learning pods and I did talk about how families, especially in lower income communities, can leverage learning pods to create their own learning spaces. But it was during the pandemic. And I'm not sure if learning pods equate to homeschooling, but I've seen models where families have come together and say, hey, one household is going to teach English one day out of the week, another household is going to do science, another household is going to do math, another household is going to do social studies, another household is going to do electives. And what would happen is a group of, maybe you might have a learning pod of maybe, let's say, 10 kids, or less. and those 10 kids will just go from one household to another, where a parent or a guardian in that household has taken on teaching a particular subject area. And that's what families were doing during the pandemic. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting option, because there's a misconception that in our community we're not well educated, and the fact that we know that's not true. There are people in our community, in our household, in our families who are very well educated, but they've opted not. Education has not been their choice of careers. But if you leverage those in the community who have college degrees, who are amazing at math and whatever the case may be, and have those skill sets. And one thing that's very interesting, and I want to reiterate, that just because you don't have a college degree doesn't mean that you're not brilliant, or you might not have a mastery of a content area. You know, there is in homeschooling, there's no rule that the parent has to have a degree. You just have to make sure that your child is covering the content. You know, and if you need support, you know, the districts are there to support you in those spaces. But there's nothing saying that you have to have a degree. You know. So again, if this is the direction we're going in, what happens? What's the potential that the public school system, especially in urban settings, might crumble? Because if families are saying that we're going to put our kids out, and not only that, you know, we're going to create, let's say, learning pods, you know, and create those spaces where we're doing stuff like that, what would happen? Let me see here. And I'm going to pull in Aislinn, who, hello.
Hi, Mr. Njogu.
How are you doing? So for those of you who don't know, Aislinn is one of my former students. I'm doing really well. So Aislinn is one of my former students who is now has her master's in education. So she is in education now. So Aislinn, talk to me. What do you think about this? What is your thoughts about families putting their kids out and homeschooling?
I think that it has its good benefits and its bad benefits. It has a good benefit because then the parents don't have to worry about what their teachers are teaching them. Because it could be for many reasons. It could be for religious aspects. It could be for their philosophies of how they think. You know, how the parents have their mindsets. But I also think it's bad because they don't really trust us as teachers. You know, about what we're teaching them, and the methods that we're trying to teach them.
Do you think it's not? Do you think it's not trusting? Do you think it's not trusting teachers, or is it the system that teachers have to teach within?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I think it's both because it depends on the school how they communicate with the parents. Because if you have that good communication with the parents, they have that good system. You know, like that good trust system. But if you don't really show it, how can they trust you?
Excuse me, Aislinn, 1 second. I was just told in the chat that there was an echo. So please let me know if the echo is still there. Real Talk Cali, if you could let me know if the echo is still there. So Aislinn, go ahead, continue. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So how I was saying that, you know, it could be either way, I think, because there's some stuff now that they put into the system that the parents don't want them to teach, that it terrifies them, you know, because I've heard a lot of people that I know that, you know, they even said in their experience, they're like, I'm not going to send my child there because of these reasons, or I'm not going to send my child because I just don't want them to be learning those type of things, you know? So it really depends. It could be good and bad. It depends on how you approach it and how you make your decision to take into your hands or into their hands.
So a question. So what do you think we can do, schools can do, districts can do, to build trust again with teachers?
I think that it really depends, because there are some parents that, you know, they have this system of, you know, why are you gonna let my child be with this person for a certain hours of the day, and then they don't really know what's going on in my life when it comes to me being with my kid at home, or they don't know how can I approach this situation, this matter. You're saying one thing, but I see another thing. So sometimes you really have to be specific of what's going on with the child, but also what's going on at home. you know um you have to really get to be compassionate with the parents. You have to be sympathetic with them. You have to be very lenient. It's like if you're negotiating a contract or a deal, you have to be 50-50. Because if you're not 50-50, then how can we become better educators?
That's awesome. So let me ask you a question. If you had children, would you homeschool or would you send them to public school?
um Well, I would, I mean, it really depends on the situation too, I think. But I would say as of right now, like I would send my kids to public school, because if I'm an educator and I know what it's like to be in their shoes, why would I not leave my child with someone that, has the same I guess like principles as I do? Um but it would be good in a way to homeschool my kid, because I'll get to spend more time with them, get to know them as actual people, and get to know what, like, their strength and their weaknesses, and how I can help them to really strive to be the best. Because there are some teachers who are very flexible sometimes with the kids, and that's not good. For me, that's not good, because if you see that the child is struggling and you're not willing to help them enough, or to push them to do their best, how can they become better learners?
Very, very true. Excellent. Thank you so much for your contribution.
Yeah.
Hopefully everything's going well with you, and we'll talk soon.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
And let me see if I can get this up here. Why is it doing that? So I'm trying to post to share a comment here, and it's not doing this thing. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. So the comment here is, in my opinion, this is from the comments. I think that it devalues what teachers do on a daily basis. Teachers spend years getting certified to teach. Everyone can't do it, and that's from Brother Solomon, and I guess that's in response to the question of feeling about families putting their kids out of public schools for homeschooling, or schools in general. And that's a good point, because again, I can only, it's funny because 17 years in the school system, in my brain, I've been thinking to myself, like, man, the amount of work that we do in our school buildings. I've been a teacher, I've been a dean, I've been an AP, I've been a principal, and the amount of work that everyone in the school building does just to create a safe, space for kids. Teachers, lesson planning, differentiating, making sure we're providing the best possible content for the kids, and then for there not to be trust, that's an issue, and it's a good question about how that makes teachers feel, because again, but then I also ask the question: is it the teachers, or is this the system within which teachers have to work in that's creating this lack of trust? Because again, in these interviews and these articles I've been reading, I'm not seeing people say, "Well, the teachers are at fault." I'm seeing people questioning the politics behind why schools are the way the schools are, and I think that's something to really consider. Let me see if I can share this. Okay, and then Real Cali Talk asked the question: what about socialization with homeschooling? And that's another good question. Socialization. We know school is there also as a space for kids to build social skills, and also that social emotional learning. Because how do you develop those skills without interacting with human beings, with other children? Not to say parents are not human beings, but there are zones of approximate development. As you're developing, there's certain skill sets you're acquiring. A lot of it has to do with how you interact with other children and the world around you. But if you're not out there, can you still do that? And but one thing I would say is this: I have seen people try to circumvent that by doing the learning pods and creating those small spaces where the kids are interacting with other kids by doing that model of going from household to household to learn two different subjects, and then also having those play dates where the kids go on field trips together, and you have homeschooling associations that families have put together within communities so that any child who's in a homeschooling situation within a township or within a city or within a neighborhood can all interact with each other. So I think that's how some people are trying to address that. But again, that's something to also to consider. Our kids, because if all the kids if you're only around kids who are being homeschooled, is there a possibility that you're only around certain personality types? So if you need, to really push your growth by being around a diversity of people, is homeschooling going to afford you that? And that's a good question from Real Talk Cali. Again, if you're joining us right now, this is Uche and Joku, Sneaker Principal Podcast. I'm turning this space into a live call-in show that you can actually call in, or you can join me face to face. Again, if you want to call in, you want to be anonymous, you just want to talk, or you just want to put your question in the chat box, you can do that. And if you're like, listen, I want to talk to you face to face and show my face, please utilize this link right here. You can join as a live video guest at tinyurl.com/tsp-video-guest. Okay, when you put that into your URL, when you put that URL into your whatever search engine you use for the web address, it will bring you to my green room. And from there, when I see you in there, I can pull you up and you can join me in a face-to-face conversation, and everybody's going to see you as well. So just be mindful. If you want to talk, you really want to go in and you're like, I don't want people to know this is my opinion, you probably don't want to do that. But if you want another option, you could just go ahead and call directly at 914-222-0619, and I'll pick up the phone and we can talk, and they'll just hear your voice. I don't have the option of masking your voice or like the voice distortion. So it's going to be your voice. So if you have a unique voice, somebody recognizes you, I apologize. But again, this evening we're talking about homeschooling. There is I believe the number that I came across was over 1 million students moved to homeschooling during the pandemic. And it's funny because I came across an article about New York City schools. And the article is talking about how here in New York City, public school enrollment is actually down, and by, I think it said 30% over the pandemic. This is a school system of over 1 million children. So 30% is a lot of children. That's hundreds of thousands of kids. When you talk about out of over 1 million, and you say 30%, the enrollment is down by 30%. And I believe it says that actually, I want to make sure I have that number. I'm sorry, my bad. Not 30%. It's 9.5%. Enrollment is down by 9.5%. But that's still 10% over 1 million. We're still talking about over 100,000 kids, right? Then for this school year, it says here that and this is from the Comeback on Chalkbeat, and this is a website that does education news, and it says here that the officials are expecting 30,000 fewer K-12 students to be in the roles this fall compared to last year. So not only have we lost 9.5% enrollment, but also another 30,000, for this school year. And the explanation for that there's various explanations for that. We're talking about families who, during the pandemic, said, I'm leaving New York City. Businesses were closed and people were not able to work the way they wanted to work. And so you were talking about, food insecurities, housing insecurities, all kinds of things happening. And even families who had losses. So people were like, I'm going to go back home or move back to families down south or wherever the case may be, and I leave New York City. And plus, we know New York City is pretty expensive. And during the pandemic, things got kind of crazy here. And even now, with the way the economy is, a lot of people are leaving the city. So the question is, would that reduce enrollment and with the 30,000 kids less this school year? Again, I wonder how many of those are due to families who are just saying, you know what, we're not leaving the city. We're just going to take educating our kids into our own hands. You know. So again, what are your thoughts about that? You know, and like I asked Aislinn, who called it earlier, what do you believe we can do to change that? Whether it's teachers or schools specifically or district or even the system, what could be done to change and rebuild trust in families? Because again, if 1 million nationwide during the pandemic, and we know this is not changing a trend, because families are actually building associations and organizations around homeschooling their kids in their communities. You know, if this is happening, let's be honest here. And it's working, there's going to be more and more families opting to do this. You know, and if they opt to do that, how, you know, what does that mean in the long term for public education? Some people might say, listen, it's not going anywhere because most families cannot afford that. It's a thing of privilege. So with that being said, I'm not worried about it, because yes, there's going to be kids going in that direction, but we're still going to have a lot of kids who need schools to go to, you know. But I mean, the pandemic happened and 1 million kids went to a homeschool. A lot of those kids are not going back. So when is the next pandemic going to happen? When is going to be the next incident? Let's think about this. I mean, the proliferation of guns and violence in schools, and you turn the TV on, you see kids run out of school buildings because there's a shooting in the building, you know. And I always say God forbid, because I never want to have my children or anyone's child be in that situation. But I wonder how many families are saying, you know what, I don't want to be, I might have to be in that space. So I'm going to remove them out of that space entirely. So what do you think that we can do to change that? What do you think needs to happen to make sure that that we can create a space where, even if homeschool is an option for you, it's not because the school is not because you feel like the school is not doing its job or is incapable of educating your child. It's because it's just an option. You know, just like if you choose a charter school versus a public school versus a private school or a Catholic school or any kind of institution that's religiously based, homeschool should just be another option. But right now, homeschool seems to be an option of survival. You know, reading articles about people talking about being bullied, kids asking to not have to go back to school. You know, one of the things that I remember clearly this past school year, as we came back into the building, is the number of parents who said to me, but we were calling parents saying, listen, your child has to come back to school. School's back in person, in full swing. Your child has to be in the building. And the number of parents who would say, nah, I'm not saying my child. No. I don't feel my child is safe there. And not only that, I've gotten used to my child being at home. And why can't you just continue doing the virtual instruction? Then there were also those parents who said, I'm going to be honest with you, my child does not want to go back because they don't feel safe. So now it was the child that didn't want to go back. And I was working in the high school. So in the high school situation, we're talking about, these are young adults. So you might say, listen, I want to force this kid to go to school, but again, it's not something that is easy to do when a kid is like 16, 17, 18, 19, you know? Let me see this right here. So here's another something that's interesting, especially when we talk about socialization in schools, and kids going to schools to learn how to develop those socializing skills, right? A lot of homeschool kids become awkward adults, and it's funny because that's one of the things that I I don't know if I can say I believed or still do believe, because there's a stereotype of what a kid who's homeschooled looks like, you know, and it's funny because it's not funny, but it's typical that when you hear about children who are being homeschooled, these are children who typically couldn't hack it in school. You know, they were having all kinds of issues, or maybe it might be medical, or there's something about that child that being in a regular school setting, this didn't work for them. So now they're being homeschooled. So they create this stereotype. This child is awkward, or even worse, if they're already awkward, they're only going to become more awkward, right? And again, it's a question, because I don't know. I was not homeschooled. I went to in-person school, public, private, you know, all the way through my education. And was school fun? Absolutely not. You know, I would tell you this. I think the majority of my time in school as a child was painful, because you go through the bullying, you go through the social. I mean, you also go through the awkward development that every child goes through, and trying to fit in and all those different things. But I had to survive. I had to survive through that, and I think I developed a lot of skills in those spaces that led me to who I am today. But also went through a lot of things that I wish I hadn't gone through. So I have a caller in right now. Let's see. And bring him in. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. So talk to us. What are your thoughts on this whole move and push towards with families pulling their kids out of schools?
On the one hand, I can understand, as a parent, my wife and I, we have a 9-month-old. So as a parent, you have the right
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. So as a parent, you have the right to do whatever you feel is best for your child. But as an educator, I feel like there's just a lack of respect for the profession. People, I don't see in other professions people questioning, like you go to the doctor. People don't say, you know what, I'm going to do my own surgeries because I know I can do it better than you. Educators, we spend years getting trained and getting these certifications and these degrees, and then people say that they think that they can do it better. And I just think in this, there's just a lack of respect for education as a whole. And my family's from Nigeria, and I think like when I talk to my parents and I hear like the respect that educators are given in other countries, it's just completely different. And I just think that until there's more respect given in the profession, things aren't going to change.
So, okay, fellow Nigerian, I did not know that. Okay, awesome. So that's your question. Okay, just real talk.
Yes,
Mm-hmm. Is there any scenario in which you would homeschool your child?
I don't know. I mean, I think because I know what it takes to be a good educator, I would trust that, if wherever school my wife and I put our kids in is going to be a good school district. But I mean, I guess it would have to be an extreme circumstance if I was to, take our kid and homeschool. So I don't know. I can't see a scenario where I would want to do that though.
Do you think things have gotten extreme for these families? Do you think we're in extreme times?
Yeah, I can see it's a very unique time. So I can it's like on one hand I can understand why you would do it, but I also think that it kind of speaks to just how devalued teachers are.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because over the course of my career, I've seen. I mean, and listen, and you're an educator, and I've seen great teachers, and I've also seen teachers that were like, ugh.
Yeah.
We're gonna keep working on this.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Right.
I wonder, and in those instances I do question, and that's when I question whether or not, I have two young ones. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my 4-year-old right now, we're looking for the right pre-K environment,
Yeah.
and it's been hit or it's been. a lot of miss. Like, I mean, a lot of miss. You know,
Yeah.
places where you walk in and you be like, oh, heck no, my child's not coming here. Or even places where you reach out to and communication was horrible. So I'm like, if you can't communicate with me, get me a form, you know, and it's been 2 weeks, then things are gonna happen in the school. You won't even let me know what's going on.
Yeah.
So in those spaces, you know, it's like, you know, you as a parent, and it's funny because you have a 9-month-old. I've only been a parent for 4 years, you know, and this is the easy. I think this is the easy part because they're at home. They're at home. You know, I couldn't imagine what happens when they start going to school. You know, so homeschooling is something that I know that has come up with my wife and I in talking about how we educate our child. But also, you know, I've been a veteran. I'm a veteran educator. You know, so, like you said, I know the degrees and what all the stuff and our expertise and I've seen kids be successful and move on to college and they're adults now. Aislinn, who called in earlier, was one of my students. You know, middle school all the way through high school, and she's got her master's degree. So I know for a fact what we do in the school building means something. But then the question now is, what's happening? Like that video that I wish I could play is based out of Alabama, and in Alabama, things are not that good down there in the school system down there. You know, and it hasn't been for a while. So these parents are saying like, listen, we're just going to do our own thing, and we're talking about they're literally building organizations and say, listen, we're going to have a whole entire neighborhood of homeschool kids, and we're going to teach our kids ourselves. And I wonder if I was in that space, if I wouldn't be like, you know what, I'm going to join in too. Because at the end of the day, it's our kids, you know. But then also I'm afraid, like, what does that mean for the school system? You know, because again, you know, I believe in it. You know, I like you said, all these years of education and fighting to make sure we have the great school spaces, you know, are we risking that going away down the road?
Yeah. I think when there's more resources and more respect and more just energy put into education, so like teachers and administrators and just everyone in education being paid more and respected more, and then, you know, people respecting those qualifications and certifications, I think that the education system would get better because you'll be able to get more qualified people. They'll feel more respected, and I think things can actually change at that point. So I think if things start moving in that direction, I think education could change.
I'm going to keep you on as a fellow educator, and I'm going to put this comment on here and see what you think. Let me see if I can get this to all fit in the same screen, because this is crazy. Let me see right here. Okay, maybe here we go. So, Real Cali Talk says, what do y'all think about districts allowing people to become teachers without certifications or without fully passing the process due to teacher shortages? Might this be a reason to homeschool? What are you thinking?
I think that I've seen that happen where people who aren't passing certain tests are becoming teachers, and it's almost like it speaks again to the valuing of teachers, because it's like you don't care about the kids actually being educated. You just need a warm body in the room, you know. And I think when that kind of thing happens, when you have people who aren't qualified, the kids suffer because they're not getting taught properly, because these people aren't, you know, they're not passing those tests, and they're not having the right certifications. And, you know, I think there are situations where people are really smart and might not just be able to pass a test. I think that happens. But and I know some people who like really struggled passing certain exams to, you know, teach different subjects. But I think that's part of it. You know, if I'm trying to be a doctor and I don't pass the MCAT, I can't do it, right?
Can you imagine having a doctor and they tell you, you know what? I'm gonna let you know real quick. My boards, I got an extension, but it's gonna be good. I'm gonna perform the surgery, you know, but it's gonna be good. I'm gonna catch it next time, but I'm still gonna perform the surgery.
Exactly. So if you wouldn't do it to be a doctor, or, you know, you didn't pass the bar exam to be a lawyer, you know, if you can't pass these tests to be a teacher, then I mean, why should it be any different?
But and personally, I agree with that. I had to take a bunch of tests, to get my licenses, you know, and it was horrendous. And I tell people all the time, the license to be a special ed teacher, that test, I failed that test
Yeah,
because
I was a special ed teacher,
okay,
so I know
yeah,
how that works. Yeah,
so I passed everything that test, and it was funny, but it was the one thing that was like positive to pass this test. But I think I missed it by like 1 point.
yeah,
So I took it again and I blew out the water. But I was like, no, like I had to take this test. But now we have a shortage, you know. But at the same time, if there was a shortage of doctors, they would never say, listen, those of you who didn't pass, come back. We won't give you
exactly,
a temporary license extension until you
exactly.
pass the test. That would never happen, and that would never happen in any field. Police officer, or a lawyer, you know, even a certified nurse's assistant still got past that test to get their
Exactly.
license. You know, but in
Exactly.
education, you know, we are willing to. The system is willing to make allowances. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes I question, are like you said something very powerful. The disrespect that is felt by educators who are like, damn, you're gonna put your kid out? Then what are we here for? But then
Yeah.
I also wonder, when you have teachers in classrooms who are not fully certified, are they teachers or are they just babysitters?
Yeah.
You know, and as a
And
parent,
it speaks to it. Yeah, it speaks to it though how it's devalued because you don't. It's like you don't want teachers. You just want a warm body in the classroom to kind of babysit. You know, and I think in other professions, if there are shortages, they would they would give bonuses to people who are well qualified. They would give incentives to try to bring people in. They don't do that in education. They just say anybody who wants to do it, come on.
yeah. Did you see the states that I think it was Arizona who brought in National
Yeah,
Guardsmen? And I was
I saw
like,
that.
wait a minute, what?
It's
I'm like,
crazy. It's
yeah,
crazy.
I was like, I hope they're officers. At least I hope they have at least they're officers. I know. Are you bringing a 17-year-old National Guardsman, 17 and a half, in the classrooms to be a para? What are we doing now?
Right.
You
It's
know?
crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, but this is the conversation we need to have because again, you know, like it's funny because we started talking about homeschooling, but now we're talking about certifications. Because
Yeah.
again, maybe the real question I should have been asking is why are parents doing this? What are all the whys? And again, I know for a fact, and I'm pretty sure you're probably gonna lean in the same direction with me. If your school in your great neighborhood had a teacher shortage, and all of a sudden you found out that your baby is sitting in the classroom with, you know, a long-term, you know, sub who has a degree in basket weaving and
Yeah.
is there to just keep, you know, to be an adult in the classroom, I'll be like, get my child out of that classroom, put him in the classroom with a
Exactly.
certified teacher. But
Exactly.
is that fit to all the other kids who are left behind? You know, I'm going to share this one. I'm going to share this one more comment here, and it's in alignment with our conversation here. Real Talk County says, in my school, we have full-term subs to fill empty teaching spots. The district seems to have no choice because a lot of teachers quit due to stress in schools during the pandemic. And that's the other thing too now is the great you know, they talk about the great resignation.
Yeah.
In education, it's not resignation, it's the great exodus.
Yeah.
You know, and not only in the school building, also, I'm coming about information about people in the education programs who are saying I'm changing my major, like you know, like they're like I'm changing, I'm going to do something different. And I've actually
Yeah.
met two people who actually went through the whole entire process, student teaching, got their master's degree, graduated, and said I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
You know, and we're talking
It's
about fully certified.
yeah. It's a weird time to be in education, but I just like I'm so passionate about educating children, and I just think that when you have the right people, when you're in it for the right reasons, you get the best results. And it's a job that is it's a passion, it's a calling, you know, and you can't just have people in it just to fill seats. You know, you have to have people who are passionate about it. But at the same time, I understand for people who I mean, I understand parents when you have people who aren't certified and who don't have the qualifications. I can understand why they might want to pull their kids out. So I see it a little bit, but I still think that if things were done better, if teaching was respected as some of these other professions, this wouldn't be an issue.
That's facts. That's facts, brother. First of all, I did you an injustice. Introduce yourself. Let people know if you're okay with the way you teach and
Yeah.
what you teach and all that, please.
Oh, my name is Solomon Bazawai Jr. I am. This is actually my first year out of the classroom. I was a special education teacher and department chair. Last 2 years about teaching. This is my 7th year in education. This year I am the MTSS coordinator of my school district, of my school, and I'm hoping to become an administrator hopefully in the next couple of years.
And what you said MTSS? Can you tell everybody
Yeah.
what that stands for?
Yeah, so that is multi-tiered systems of support. So any time if there's a teacher who has students who are struggling with behavior, academics, or attendance, they come in and they call me in and I help the teacher with strategies and interventions to help the student.
What's the difference between that and like here in New York City we have deans who for the most part do play the same role. Is that the same thing or is that different where you are?
It might be similar. This is like more so like the RTI process. So
Okay, so it's more instructionally focused than
yes,
just
yes,
behavioral and your suspended type scenarios that things
right,
have to do. Okay.
right.
Well, Brother Solomon, thank you so much. Again, congratulations. And are you getting any sleep now? 9 months in?
Yeah, yeah. We've been sleeping for like the last month. So
See, that's why you're
it's getting
smiling right
better.
now.
Yes,
That's why
sir.
you're smiling. And that's why you're able to jump on this call because I know for a
Yes,
fact.
sir.
Because at month 7, that's not happening.
Yeah.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And again, this is the realities. It's so multi-tiered. It's not just parents are pulling their kids out. It's also the why. Why? What's happening that's causing this to happen, and what do we need to address it? And we've been able to kind of like pull out a bigger issue here. Who's teaching our children? And again, those teachers like Brother Solomon who are certified and have committed themselves to this profession, that's who you want in front of your child because this is what they do, this is what they breathe, this is who they are. Versus again, listen, I'm not gonna sit here and downplay the role that these teachers, but they're still teachers who are coming in the state of emergency as subs, as temporary licensed personnel to support schools. I'm not going to downplay what they're doing because without them, we're going to have kids who are not being supervised, kids who are getting absolutely nothing. And for a lot of families, they can't afford to have their kids at home, so they have to send them to school. But again, the question is, is how long does this go on for until parents are saying, you know what, we got to find another way to make sure our kids are being properly educated. Real Talk Cali says, I know a teacher who decided to work as a para, have a weekend job, and she said her pay right now is higher and her stress level has gone down to 0. So again, that is another issue. That's another issue that beyond who's in the classrooms. No, not beyond who's in the classrooms. That's also exacerbating who's in the classrooms because think about this. Teacher pay is a big issue. I just met a gentleman who walked away from, and this person is arguably one of the best teachers in his district. Recognized teacher in down south. I met him at a conference, and he said, I left at the end of last school year. I said, why? He said, listen, the pay, I gotta eat, I gotta survive. He's like, it doesn't matter how much work I put, how passionate about the work, but if I'm trying to rub 2 pennies together, trying to make trying to make $1 out of 15 cents, that's an issue, And he was like, listen, somebody told me about transitioning to tech field. I did like 2 or 3 certifications. I paid for them. I did them online and for my computer at home. And after I got those 3 certifications, he was like, they cost like $60 each. I got a job that paid $40,000 more than I was making as a teacher, with bonuses and full benefits and all these different things that literally. But think about this: $40,000 on top of what you're making already. That's life changing. You'd be surprised how just $100 more in your paycheck could mean the world of difference. So now imagine, you're going from making 50,000 to making 90,000, and then you get bonuses, and you're getting high raises every couple of months. I mean, every 6 months. And he was like, "Listen, I hate to do it, but I had to, because there's no way in the world I was going to see that kind of money in the near term. I would have to wait a number of years and get a bunch of more degrees to get to that level." And again, that's another issue. So yeah, this is something that I think is going to be around with us for a while. A conversation that needs to be had. What are we doing about making sure we're creating school spaces that address the needs of our children to a level where parents feel so confident that the idea of homeschooling is not even an option, because we're meeting all their children's needs. I mean, don't get me wrong. As a parent, I am not released from my responsibilities as an educator of my children. But the culture, the expectations, the values, those are up to me to make sure that my children are living up to those expectations. But this is still part of the education. But when they go to school, they gain the social cues and understanding of society at a greater level, and also getting the core content knowledge that they need. I mean, this be honest, like reading and writing and math. Those things are necessary to be able to survive in the world. And it's very important as a parent that I know those things are happening in the school, so I feel good about it. But if it's not happening, then maybe I might opt to not send my child to school. Maybe I might opt to say, you know what, I'm just going to do it here, or join one of these organizations that have learning pods, so my kids can still get socialization and not have to be in the traditional school system. I'm going to say one more thing. We're down to the final minutes of this episode of the podcast, and there's something that I definitely want to make sure that I share. So one of the articles I read, the parent said something I thought was very interesting, and this is another one of those things. So we're talking about, because of the pandemic, we have classrooms without certified teachers because there's a teacher shortage. A lot of teachers left and quit because of the pay, because of the stress. Teachers who, I actually saw an article of a teacher who quit their job teaching and took a job working at Walmart, working at Walmart as a manager, and he's making more money than they were doing teaching. And I was like, wow, that's, and not to throw any shade on Walmart, but what does that say about society where a teacher who's fully certified and has the master's degree is making more money working at Walmart than they are working at their regular job as a teacher? So this parent also threw this one more thing, and it was actually in the video. And the video she said, my child was going to public school, my children, spending the whole entire day at school, coming home and having to do 2 or 3 hours of homework, on top of what happened in school. And she said, but when my homeschooling, my child does all the work that needs to be done within the time block allotted to their education. There is no homework. Because I need my child to also be a child. And I thought to myself, wow. But that's another argument that we've been having in education for a while. Homework. Is it necessary? Is it not necessary? Is that reinforcement of what was taught in school happening at home? Is that helpful or not helpful? Is it okay for a child to go home and have to do homework all the way to 10, 11 o'clock at night, like I did? When I took all those AP classes and everything else, man, school, what do you mean? My life was school. Whatever I did at school, came home, I kept on working. There were times I would be up to 2 o'clock in the morning writing the paper or working on some problem set for the next day, because that's the way school is structured. And is that healthy? Or is that what needs to happen for your child to be successful? But these are all the things that we need to really engage and talk about and figure out how does it all work. Again, I want to thank you all for being here this evening, and let me know how you felt about this format. And again, this is something new, because in the past I've just had a guest or just me talking, But I enjoy this, engaging with you in conversation, being able to have you jump on the interview with me, onto the video, onto the podcast live and talk to me directly. Or again, there's a phone option as well for you to call in. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Please, 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 I'm going to repeat it again. Share, like, subscribe, follow. I mean, it costs you nothing to just hit share. Okay, the algorithm is going to love you for it. I'm going to love you for it, and we're going to be able to push this content forward so more people can see it. Please visit my website, www.thesneakerprinciple.com. There you see all my social media, and also see if you want to be a supporter of this channel, financial supporter, you'll see a link there. $4 a month. You know, I'm not asking for much, but a lot of this takes time and energy, and any support you would give me, I appreciate. It could just be a comment of saying thank you. I appreciate that as well. But yeah, it is now 11:01, and I am 1 minute past a lot of show time. So thank you so much for being here with me this evening. Be well, and until next time. I'll see you on, actually, I got to tell you, Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 o'clock. So I'll see you on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. All right? Be safe. And until then.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.